Okay.
Got it.
Are you using the mouse on this?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll call this meeting of the nominating commission for the 25th Judicial District into order over Zoom. We have 9 members of the commission who are all identified on the screen here participating. We're convening for the purpose of interviewing Daryl L. Walters, who is an applicant for the magistrate judge position in Kearney County. I'm going to turn off my email for a second. And does any member of the commission have anything to bring up before we bring Mr. Walters into the Zoom call for purposes of the interview? Seeing nothing, I think we can go ahead and we'll get started.
I will bring Mr. Walters in.
Mr. Walters, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I'm Dan Biles. I'm a member of the Kansas Supreme Court, and I'm the departmental justice for the 25th Judicial District. I serve as a non-voting member of the Judicial District's nominating commission. And I thank you very much for your interest in this position. And we'll conduct the interview over Zoom, and you're the only applicant. So after that, we'll have a discussion about you and go on about the business of the commission. I might just tell you that a good way to open these kind of discussions up would be for you to introduce yourself generally to the commission and maybe tell us why you think you would be qualified for this position. Then I'll open it up for questions from any of the nominating commission members.
Well, my name's Daryl Walters, and I'm a lifelong Kansan. And since 1983, I've been a Kearney County resident. My wife and I still live here, although I have 3 children that are scattered between Nebraska and Virginia. And I professionally, I recently retired from the Kearney County Sheriff's Office after 38.5 years. I retired as the undersheriff. During my time there, I worked patrol into investigations and then into management administration. Prior to that, I graduated from Garden City High School. And while working, I graduated from Garden City Community College and Friends University. I had to trade a lot of shifts to get that last one done. And so when I retired, I was not sure that I was ready to retire, but the kind of work we were doing and the sometimes physical demands, the mind and the soul were willing, but the knees weren't quite as willing to go along with it. So I thought it was time to retire and see what my next chapter is.
I'll open it up for questions from the commission. I think just jump in as you see fit.
Daryl, John Lindner here. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your application and it was very, very good, very well written. I compliment you on that. I wanted to talk to you about this blue bias. I think it's great that you brought it up because obviously your background would put a defense attorney and a defendant perhaps in apprehension that they maybe weren't going to get a fair ear or a fair shake. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, and I see that you acknowledge it, and you acknowledge that bias is inherently human, and that you feel like you can focus on the facts and get around that. And I appreciate that, and I suspect that you can. Then, as I read your references, I saw that you submitted a reference from one individual who said, in this day of lawlessness and disrespect for law enforcement, Daryl's our man. He is going to fix it. So I don't have a problem with that man's opinion. He's entitled to it, but you chose to include him as one of your references. So can you help me square that with you're telling us that you may have blue bias, but you feel like you can deal with it, and then your choice to submit this particular reference?
Well, I'm not sure which reference it is, but I do have my reference pool. A lot of them were people that I'd worked with over the years. When you work in law enforcement, people you interact with other than your family are a lot of times the people that you are working cases with or shifts with.
Well, if I can interrupt you, it is not law enforcement. It is identifies himself as a citizen, and those are his words: increasing lawlessness and a deepening disrespect for those who put their lives on the line. So it's not anybody with a law enforcement background. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess that narrows it down to anybody that has a computer or has Twitter or Facebook. I think there's a lot of belief out there in certain segments that when law enforcement officers are suffering from a lack of respect, and admittedly, some of it's deserved. There are things that have gone on that when I look and I see these feeds, I'm like, I think, what the heck were they thinking? You know, how did that happen? What has happened to cause this situation where those individuals in law enforcement are reacting that way to those situations? I was very fortunate, you know, when people would ask, what's it like where you live? Where I live, no matter who you are, law enforcement or otherwise, if you're on the side of the road and you're involved in an altercation, there's going to be about 5 people with rifle racks in the truck and pliers on their belt are going to jump out and help. You know, so the lawlessness, I think, comes across from what we see and what we hear. I will tell you from where I sit here, I think we have a pretty fair grasp. I think that our community has a fair grasp, and you can, I don't think anybody here is worried about their kids wandering around. I mean, we all tell our kids to be home when the streetlights come on, but if we have some stragglers after the streetlights come on, I don't think we have to worry about it. I don't know if there's something that I can fix, but I appreciate whoever said that.
Well, okay, let's get to your references then. Did you pick your references? Aren't your references part of your application?
I did.
Okay.
And they are.
All right. So, well, let's cut right to it. I mean, do you share this man's opinion that with this increasing lawlessness and disrespect for law enforcement, that you're the man and you're going to fix it?
Well, I don't think any one person is going to fix anything. I think if I were to be, you know, nominated for this position, I would be one small part of it. And, you know, we all do what we can do. And I know from my experience of being on where I was, we kind of relied on the person that sat in Judge Hodson's chair and all those that went before him, that let's get it to you and then you make the final decision. And it was the same with the district judges, you know, get it to somebody that can follow the law, make the determination as to what's right, what's wrong. Sometimes people you know, what's correct in the legal term may not be what some people think is right. That's the way it is. And it took me a long time to learn that. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I appreciated your comments about blue bias, and you didn't think it was, you recognized that it was probably there with you, but you didn't think you were going to be have a problem focusing on the facts. And then you chose to submit this one particular reference where you know, that person's opinion is that the blue bias is a wonderful thing, and that you're going to be right there marching to that tune. And so I just was having trouble squaring that in my mind. I don't have a problem with his opinion. He's entitled to it. My concern is that you chose to include that particular letter as a reference. So, I mean, if there's anything else you want to say to help me square that, then that's fine. I have one other thing I wanted to ask you about, but I think if you want to comment, great, go ahead. And otherwise I'll pass the witness for other comments perhaps on this.
Well, in answer to your one other thing, when I was going through a list of people that I thought might give me a letter of recommendation, or, you know, I picked people whose opinions I valued after knowing them. And so whatever the people that I may have asked, I stand, if one of them would have said, I don't think you would be a good candidate, I would be okay with that because I respect their opinion. I actually had a couple of people that I had dealt with from the criminal side that I still interact with that have convictions in cases I've worked, that I felt like would have given me a recommendation, because I've tried to play, you know, be fair in all of my activities and dealing with whatever side. And so, and I brought up blue bias. That's something that every law enforcement officer in the state of Kansas has to have training on, bias-based policing every year. It's state statute. And that's that every human being has bias. There's not one of us. And the only way we can get by that is to recognize our bias, to take measures to mitigate the bias, and just act fairly to all people we come across.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Walters, my name is Bill Heidman. I want to follow up because I think it's very important that the reference that Mr. Lindner is making may have been taken out of context. If you read the entire paragraph, and I think it's important for the commission, it says in this area or era of increasing lawlessness and a deepening disrespect for those who put their lives on the line to protect our community, it's imperative that your commission body choose someone who is respected to make judgment calls that are rooted in protecting the law-abiding citizens who deserve nothing less. I submit to you that Mr. Darrell Walters is that individual. The way I'm reading that, Mr. Walters, is that this person believes that you are a respected person, and it doesn't say in Lakin, perhaps he means all over, but he says you're well respected and that you are capable of making judgment calls. So I don't know that that paragraph goes to the blue bias, in my opinion, but let me ask, do you believe that you are capable of making appropriate judgment calls when facing a criminal matter that may involve a defendant that is innocent or otherwise was taken advantage of? Do you believe you can remain neutral in that respect?
I believe I can, and I will offer as an example, those of you who have defended cases that I've been on, you've seen those cases where an investigation was done and it led us to a criminal proceeding. What you can't see is all of those that we undertook that never reached that level of where we needed to be. And you know, whether it be the evidence just wasn't there, it was something. I'm a firm believer, if you don't point your finger at somebody and say they did it unless there's some evidence to back that up, because you know, you can't put the genie back in the bottle once these allegations are made. So you've got to be fairly certain you're functioning on the right side of things. And so it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, I would want to believe someone I formerly worked with. I will tell you, there are people that I formerly worked with that I would not believe. I have had the occasion to come across people that I formerly worked with that I was involved in prosecuting. When they stepped over the line, you know, you ring the bell, you say that's not right, and you do what you've got to do. I can think of 3 such cases that I was involved in, either heavily or on a minor level, and they're not pleasant, but it happens. And so I don't think I would put somebody's word over somebody else's just because they were. Now, granted, we all hope that our law enforcement officers are fine, upstanding citizens, and if they say the sun's coming up tomorrow in the east, we don't have to run outside and check. But we all get to know people we work with, and there sometimes comes a time when it's like, okay, well, this guy I'm comfortable with, this guy, let's ask a couple more questions. Sorry to be long-winded, but I just wanted to put that out there.
If I could hop back in there, Mr. Heidman read the rest of that paragraph and pointed out, I think, the same thing that I was saying, that you're capable of making judgment calls that are rooted in protecting the law-abiding citizens. Back to that theme. And Bill, I just ask you if you could be fair if you were presented with an innocent, defendant. What about the defendant that your instinct is he's probably not innocent, but the state can't prove otherwise? Are you going to be able to swing the gavel in that defendant's favor?
I believe I would. I mean, I'm sure have an idea of how the system works, but I can tell you, I know that there's a lot of things at this level I do not know. I'm willing to learn, but you know, there are certain things that cry out that this doesn't reach the level. It's back to like writing search warrants. Everybody that ever read one of my search warrants knows how I write them, but none of you know which ones I felt didn't rise to that level. You can, you know, use that as an example of how I dealt with people. And I don't see that how I dealt with people and what's right, what's wrong, what's fair and not would change whether I was a law enforcement officer, a magistrate judge, or just a guy telling somebody what happened in the supermarket parking lot when somebody backed into a car. I mean, what is provable, what is evident is something that you can usually see. Sometimes you have to put some thought in it to determine where that is. And I think I'm willing to put that thought into it.
Do you know Lucy Douglas?
I do.
Okay, well, I think you're about to hear from her because you teed her up on these search warrants. So there you go. It's your own fault.
Okay.
I have read enough of Daryl's search warrants that I don't really know I have any reason to question him.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if no one else is going to say anything, then I feel obligated to. So I know that you recognize that the magistrate is the final protection between the state and an individual's privacy. And I also know that every judge seems to have a little different threshold when it comes to reviewing search warrants. Can you tell us somewhat what your philosophy is regarding that gatekeeping function between the state being able to invade someone's home, their email, their vehicle, their safety deposit box or whatever, that privacy issue versus the state's desire or need to access that place.
Well, I'm speaking from my prior life, and having presented a number of search warrants and complaint affidavits in support of arrest affidavits or child needed care petitions. There is a level that you have to reach, and it somewhat varies depending on which one you're using or which area you're presenting in. And probable cause search warrant, I guess I would have difficulty finding it. It's just, basically, are the facts being presented? Do they rise to the level that what the state is alleging, or whoever, is at a level where you can reasonably believe that the information they're seeking or the evidence they're seeking is there? Is it timely, or is it just something that's a grasp at straws because we don't have anything else? And I don't recall ever having a search warrant not signed. But again, that's because there were a number that I just knew at the beginning, what we had was what we had. And we either had to make it better with follow-up interviews with, whether surveillance, because I used to do a lot of drug work. But there are some ways you can gather the information. Russ Jennings was my first magistrate judge, and he, like me, came from the Kern County Sheriff's Office. And he was not only a magistrate, he was kind of. And so when we started doing affidavits, he would take me aside and say, hey, look, I just suppressed, District Judge so-and-so search warrant. And it happened to be on a case I was involved in on a wiretap, the Drug Task Force. And this is why. In this one, you have this information, and one that looks identical. On the other side, you have this information minus this part. And he goes, I can't look at anything except the facts in that document. So I can't extrapolate what's in this one and say it applies to this one. This one's deficient, this one's not. So I kind of took that to heart as to make sure that everything that's can be known is in that document. If it rises to the level, or if it passes muster, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think I recognize what does and would reject what doesn't.
So branching into a different area, I think one of the main things the magistrate in Kearney County deals with is child in need of care cases. And I know one of the consistent complaints or concerns that we have with magistrates is the tendency to defer to the prosecution or to the agencies. Splitting up family, taking children away is a pretty traumatic thing, both for the families and for the children. Do you have a sense of what your governing philosophy in that capacity would be? Do you feel like you would be inclined towards preservation? Do you feel like you would defer to the experts? Or would you be looking towards any reasonable opportunity to reunify families? Do you have a sense on, because I really do think that is a huge chunk of, I don't do child in need of care cases over there, but I think that tends to be one of the heavier areas that the magistrate deals with there.
I think you're right, because I was involved in a number of final years. It seemed like we were getting more and more. And I can tell you from society, we all want our children to be safe. And so that's the hard bit. We don't want to go black. We want our children safe. Well, beyond that, we want our parents to raise their children. Well, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Those are hard decisions, and it could be based on, something outside of the parents' control. Can't find a job, can't support, things like that. I never saw children that were placed in DCF, St. Francis custody, that were placed there with the intent that they would not be reintegrated. My daughter, St. Francis, as a family placement social worker, I used to joke with her, I take them out of the home, you put them right back in, but there were levels that they had to go. It's a process, and I will tell you, you can't make a mistake on the welfare of a person, a child, or anything. Those are hard to repair, so you need to get it right the first time. And so I can see if you're saying that there's appears to be a bias. When you're at that 72-hour emergency placement hearing and information still coming in, sometimes you have to err on the side of caution with the well-being of a person. Now, that was what I saw from the side I was on. If I would see something different from a different angle, I guess that remains to be seen if that's the way, this committee meeting goes. And I will tell you, please don't think that if you find me to be the person that's right for the job, please don't expect perfection. I don't think anybody's perfect. I know that there are things that I might not know, but I've always known that I have a willingness to learn. And so for you to say, would I do this or would I do that? I need more information. I need to know why we're even here. What's happened that brought us to this place that we are now in a court setting? So I hope that answers your question.
So if you're at that initial emergency custody hearing and you feel that there isn't sufficient information provided to you to justify the emergency detention, are you still going to err on the side of caution? Maybe we should wait and figure out what's really going on. Why were these children taken out to begin with? Or you didn't make your case, children have to go home, even if that may in my gut not be my preference.
I think if you get to the point where you were, when we were seated in front of the magistrate for that emergency hearing, things had already happened. There was a police protective custody issue, which had to be followed by some sort of an emergency affidavit or petition to a judge. So by the time you get to that hearing, that is not the first time that a magistrate or a judge, and it wasn't always the same judge that signed the petition as it was that heard. Usually it was, but sometimes it was a different magistrate or judge that had the hearing 72 hours. And so many of those that I saw were by agreement. You had a guardian ad litem that was there saying, I think kids should be stay out of the home. You had potentially someone for the parents if they were available, things like that. And when you talk about those types of things too, you can have a child in need of care case based on a lot of things. You got someone in the household harming a child, you may have a child in need of care case in conjunction with a criminal. And so those are all factors that have to go. You cannot send a child back into a home where a potential offender is. Well, let me say you shouldn't, but I have seen it done. And so that would be the view I think any logical person would have, protect that child, and let's get this thing to, the best possible outcome.
Is that a Billy Bass behind you, or is it just a piece of wood?
It's a piece of wood next to all of the fly knots that I can't tie.
I was
He
hoping
does not sing.
I was hoping it was a Billy Bass and you could make it sing.
No, I cannot.
I got one other question for you. One of your references quotes you. I don't know if he uses the term that's your motto, but it's a quote he attributes to you. We will do what's righteous regardless of what others do. Righteous, kind of a buzzword, means different things to different people. What's it mean to you?
Righteous means it will pass muster. And I think where that was coined was one time when we were discussing a case with the county attorney, a previous one. And there was something, and the county attorney was like, I think we're there, but I just don't know that it will, carry through to the next level. And I made the comment, well, if it's not righteous now, we won't do it. We'll go get more information. We'll do something. So righteous is doing the correct thing. Again, I think I said before, sometimes the correct thing isn't popular, and sometimes people base righteousness on what they think it's a popular term. So it's a hard sell for sometimes to tell somebody, look, I understand you don't think this is right, but this is legal, this is correct, and this is the way it has to be. If someone's open-minded, then you can maybe get them there. I think unfortunately we have so many people anymore that believe something is right, this is correct, based on how many retweets it gets or how many thumbs up on Facebook. That's not correct. It's actually the things that you're dealing with on a personal level. That's where you get that, right or wrong. I've seen things that I didn't think were right, and when able, we correct. You know, and that's not me as what I used to be law enforcement. That was me as just a person. You know, so I think if you carry that into everything you do, then that's where that motto comes from. Be right.
Righteous basically means correct, if you had to choose another word for it.
Righteous, correct. What you can do that will allow you to go to sleep at night.
Okay.
And it might be different for different people. I understand that. None of us are exactly the same.
All right. Thank you, Daryl. You're a fine candidate.
Thank you.
Daryl, I'd like to thank you for applying. I'm surprised you're willing to come out of retirement. But I will tell you that having worked with you in various capacities for many, many years, I don't have any fear that you can't be objective, and that if you have a guy that, and you'll have a guy you know is guilty, and you will know the evidence isn't there. I really don't have any doubt that you'll say not guilty in this case, because that's what you have to do as a judge. You have any question? That's the way you'll be?
I do not. I think I have practiced, what I preach for long enough that I don't like things that aren't right any more than someone else. And I realize the repercussion of like I said, you don't want to point a finger at somebody unless there's evidence to back it up, because sometimes they can't recover. So you certainly wouldn't want to cause harm to somebody, whether it be their freedom or, whatever it is, without being certain. And so I think that's something that I could be objective and try to be right in everything I did.
Well, again, I appreciate the application. I think you'll do a fine job.
Thank you.
Daryl, I'd like to, first of all, thank you for taking time to apply. Reconsidering retirement years, and as you indicated, children in various parts of the country, even though you raised them here, and we all live through our children going on. I appreciate you willing to give back some more to the community. I've had the opportunity to be a resident of Kearney County all of the time that you've lived here. Part of that time when you were in law enforcement, I was serving the city as its elected mayor. Part of that time I've been a county employee. But the one thing that resonates with me is what we've heard before. In your consideration when you were called to a case or asked to investigate a case, I think all the parties, while maybe not liking the outcome, would say that it was fairly done, that you treated people respectfully. And that's the attributes that I see you carrying to the bench should the commission choose to forward that your name. I'm grateful. I've tried to stay out and let everyone ask their questions, because I felt like I probably did have a bias. This is my home community. You're asking to serve us, and I think you would do a great job there.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any other member of the commission? Daryl, is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up here?
The only thing I would say is, and it was brought up about coming out of retirement. When I retired, I didn't think that I was done doing things. I knew I wanted to do something, and I didn't know at the time. It was a hard thing to do. I didn't know what to do for the first 2 months, what to do with the day when you didn't have to check in with somebody or something like that. But I always knew I wanted to stay kind of in the area that I was. And one thing I didn't put in, when I graduated high school, I wanted to go to law school. I made it to the University of Southern Mississippi 2 days while Brett Favre was there, but I didn't have a dorm room. And so my wife and I were looking at going to college. I thought maybe about going to law school. By that time I was working here, and we came home with plans to do that. We found out we were going to have a daughter shortly. So everything, the family kind of took off. I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed working on legal aspects of stuff. I even enjoyed going to the scenes where you had the civil disputes as to, we got somebody, they're going to split, and standing there saying, okay, well, whatever you let them have, they can take. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to court to get it. Trying to work those things out with people so they can make their own decisions rather than have somebody for them. So by coming out of retirement, something I knew I would do. I just didn't know exactly when or where. So if this is it, I would be grateful. But I also know that you have decisions to make, and I'm comfortable with whatever decision that you come up with.
Well, hearing nothing else from the commission, I might point out for anyone who's watching the YouTube channel for this call that the commission had solicited over the last week an email address that people could submit public comment through. And the deadline for that was noon yesterday. We had no requests for additional public comment. So just the commission members need to know that. And at this point, we're in a position where we can discuss the application. Daryl, you're welcome to stay on or not. If we were doing this live, you'd be in the room as long as you wanted to. So it's not any different here. So that's up to you, but I will open the floor then to any discussion from any of the commission members.
I don't have any discussion. I would move that we select Daryl Walters as the next magistrate judge in Kearney County, Kansas.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Since we're on Zoom, in order to...
Was it Ralph or Rob? I couldn't tell.
Who seconded?
Well, go let Ralph do it. Let Ralph do it. He knows what he's doing.
All right.
If it makes any difference, I heard Ralph first.
Okay, and it is decided.
So we have a motion and a second. For purposes of voting on this Zoom channel, I'll need everyone to hold up your hand or some way visually show whether you're voting yay or nay. So let's ask for those in support of the motion, the yes vote. Well, it's unanimous, so there's no point in asking for the no's. Mr. Walters, I want you to know that the magistrate position is actually filled by the nominating commission. So we will notify the governor's office of your selection today, but it's not a situation where the governor makes any decision other than approving what's happened, which is ministerial at this notion. So we'll be working with you in the near future as the next magistrate judge of Kearney County, 25th Judicial District. So congratulations.
Thank you.
With that, I would like to just take up one other little piece of business for those that are here. I think everyone is aware that Magistrate Ed Frock has submitted his resignation in Kearney, no, in
Scott.
Scott County. I had it written down here and didn't see it. In Scott County, the commission secretary, Bill and I and Shelby exchanged some emails about a possible schedule. We'll send that out to you to look at and see what you all think of it. But just for informational purposes, we were kind of planning on having our first conference call around Friday, January 6th, and then schedule things in a way that would have the interview, assuming we have applicants, an interview somewhere around Friday, March 10th. So that you guys will have to approve the schedule, but we're going to propose that to you and you can pick at it as you see fit. So any questions about that? Any other business to bring before the commission? Am I missing anything, Bill?
I don't believe so. I think we've accomplished our goal today.
Thank you all very much. This is, we appreciate your service. And Daryl, again, congratulations. And we'll look forward at the judicial branch with working with you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Daryl.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
With that, we'll conclude the meeting. Is there anything else I need to do?